It's 2025 and Washington's a battlefield. President Donald J. Trump is back in power, swinging a sledgehammer at waste, fraud, and abuse across every corner of the federal government. Department of Education, EPA, you name it. But one agency is bleeding red. The United States Agency for International Development, USAID. Trusted to deliver billions in aid worldwide, it's been caught in a $550 million scandal that's rocked the nation. A USAID official and corporate insiders pleaded guilty, rigging contracts for kickbacks while taxpayers footed the bill. How did they pull it off? What does it mean for Trump's war on the swamp? This is Mind Your Profit, and we're diving deep into the shadows to expose the truth. So let's get right into it. Picture a government agency with a noble mission: to spread America's goodwill across the globe. USAID, born in 1961 under President Kennedy, was that agency, tasked with delivering foreign aid. $50.3 billion in 2024 alone. It funds hospitals, schools, and disaster relief in over 100 countries. To the world, it's America's outstretched hand. To Washington, it's a cornerstone of soft power. And in 2025 is ground zero in President Trump's crusade against government waste. Roderick Watson, a career USAID official who rose through the ranks to wield serious power. As a contractor overseer, he controlled multi-million-dollar deals, deciding which companies built clinics or delivered vaccines. To colleagues, he was reliable, a team player, the guy who got things done. But Watson had a darker side. He craved the high life. Luxury perks, elite status, the kind of wealth his government salary couldn't touch. And he wasn't alone. 3 corporate executives, heads of companies chasing USAID's deep pockets, saw opportunity in Watson's ambition. By the 2010s, USAID was a juggernaut managing thousands of contracts worldwide. Watson and his allies were stars in this world, rubbing elbows with foreign officials and contractors. But nobody asked how Watson afforded his flashy perks, NBA suites, fancy vacations. Nobody suspected the quiet bureaucrat was orchestrating a $550 million heist. To the public, USAID was saving lives. To Watson's crew, it was a goldmine. And in 2025, with Trump vowing to gut waste across agencies like the EPA and education, USAID's shine was about to fade. The stage was set. Watson and his cronies were untouchable until they weren't. Their scheme, hidden in plain sight, was about to unravel, exposing a scandal that'll shake Trump's Washington to its core. So let's crack open the $550 million USAID bribery scheme. A scam so brazen, it'll make your head spin. This wasn't just a smash and grab, it was slow. A meticulous heist that ran over a decade, from the early 2010s to 2024. At its heart was Roderick Watson, a USAID official with the power to award contracts, and 3 corporate executives from major aid contractors. Their game? Rigged bids, pocket kickbacks, and live like kings while taxpayer money really meant for starving kids and disaster victims vanished. And here's exactly how they did it, step by step. As a senior USAID official, Watson oversaw contract awards for projects like hospitals in Africa or food in war zones. These contracts, often worth tens of millions, were gold to contractors. The executives, heads of these companies, which will refer to them as Alpha and Beta Inc. just because their names are still under wraps, knew Watson held the keys. Starting around 2010, they struck a deal. Watson would steer contracts their way, and they'll pay him off. Simple, but deadly effective. USAID's bidding process is supposed to be competitive. Companies would submit proposals, and the best one would win. Watson and his crew gamed it. He'll tip off Alpha Corp and Beta Inc. about upcoming contracts, giving them insider details on what USAID wanted. They then tailored their bids to win, while Watson disqualified competitors for technical errors or inflated their costs to make them look bad. Sometimes he would draft fake bids from shell companies to make the process look legit. The result? Alpha and Beta won $550 million in contracts, no questions asked. So here's where it gets real dirty. In return for the contracts, the executives funnel bribes to Watson. We're talking cash. Hundreds of thousands of dollars wired to offshore accounts or handed over inside envelopes. But it wasn't just money. They paid off Watson's mortgage, scored him NBA luxury suite tickets, and even hooked up his relatives with high-paying jobs at their companies. One executive bought Watson a $50,000 watch. Another covered his kids' college tuition. The DOJ says the bribes totaled millions over a decade, all hidden through shell companies and fake invoices. To cover their tracks, Watson and executive used a web of shell companies, fake businesses set up in places like the Caribbean or Eastern Europe. USAID paid Alpha and Beta for services like consulting or logistics, but millions went into these shells instead. The shells then funneled money back to Watson and the executives, disguised as fees or dividends. Some funds hit offshore accounts in places like the Caymans, where tracing was nearly impossible. A 2024 Inspector General even flagged USAID's weak financial controls, and said it was a perfect cover because no one would check the books or look closely enough to even notice. USAID's global sprawl made this possible. With projects in over 100 countries, oversight was a nightmare. Local staff were often undertrained and audits were rare. Watson exploited this, approving payments to Alpha and Beta for projects that were over budget, incomplete, or non-existent. In one case, a $20 million healthcare clinic in Nigeria was just a blueprint, yet the money was paid. Another $15 million went to a food program inside Yemen that never delivered a single meal. The DOJ found 200 plus fraudulent transactions, each slipping through USAID's failed system. The money fueled lavish lifestyles. Watson enjoyed private jets to conferences, a vacation home, and a yacht. The executives upgraded their mansions, bought sports cars, and threw elite parties. Yet, at USAID, Watson played the humble bureaucrat. No flash, just business. The executives kept their corporate profiles clean, donating to charities that looked legit. Nobody in DC suspected a thing until the house of cards started wobbling. This scheme was only able to thrive because USAID's oversight was slim. A 2023 audit flagged $1.2 billion inside unreliable spending. Trump's 2025 war on waste, targeting agencies like the USAID, the EPA, and education, was closing in, but it took a whistleblower to light the fuse. In 2024, the scheme unraveled. A USAID staffer, we'll call them Jane Doe, noticed odd payments to a shell company during a routine review. The amounts were huge, and the recipient, a vague Global Aid Solutions, raised red flags. Jane didn't confront Watson directly. She tipped off the DOJ. The FBI launched a covert probe, tapping phones and tracing records. They found a trail of emails between Watson and the executives detailing bribes and rigged bets. Jane didn't confront Watson directly. She tipped off the DOJ. The FBI launched a covert probe, tapping phones and tracing bank records. They found a trail of emails between Watson and the executives detailing bribes and rigged bids. One email even bragged about a $100,000 bonus for a $50 million contract. On June 13, 2025, the DOJ dropped the hammer. Roderick Watson and 3 executives pleaded guilty to bribery and wire fraud. 2 companies, Alpha and Beta Inc., admitted criminal liability. The fallout was swift. Watson was fired, the executives resigned, and USAID froze their contracts. Trump, already auditing agencies like the Department of Education, seized the moment, vowing to clean house. Sentencing set for late 2025, with Watson facing up to 20 years and millions inside fines. The companies on the hook for restitution. The damage was already done. $550 million gone, and public trust is slipping away. The $550 million USAID scandal isn't just about money. It's about a system and people broken by their own flaws. Roderick Watson and his executive accomplices didn't just steal, they betrayed a nation. Let's break down the 5 cracks inside their character that fueled this heist, and what that teaches us about guarding our own integrity. Flaw number 1, greed that blinds. Watson and the executives had solid careers, 6-figure salaries, respect, power, but greed turned their hearts cold. They didn't just want more, they needed the trappings of wealth, yachts, jets, status. Their greed blinded them to lives their theft hurt. Kids without food, communities without clinics. Greed's a thief itself, stealing contentment. The lesson, gratitude for what you have is the antidote to wanting what's not yours. Flaw number 2, entitlement that justifies. As a USAID official, Watson held power over billions. The executives ran major firms. They started to believe they deserved a cut of the pie. This entitlement let them rationalize rigging contracts and taking bribes. As Proverbs 16:18 says, pride goes before destruction. Their pride convinced them they were above the law, untouchable. But entitlement doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everyone who trusts you. For us, it's a reminder. No one's owed a shortcut, no matter how powerful you may feel. Flaw number 3, deception as a lifestyle. This scheme thrived on lies, fake bids, shell companies, forged invoices. Watson played the humble bureaucrat while living like a king. The executives hid behind charity donations and clean reputations. Their double lives eroded their souls, living in fear of exposure. For us, it's simple. Even when it's hard, keeps you free. A lie might buy you time, but it will always cost you your peace. Flaw number 4, chasing status over purpose. Watson's bribes bought more than things, they bought status. NBA suites, elite circles, a yacht to impress. The executives craved the same, mansions to show off, cars to flaunt. They tied their worth to what they could show, not who they were. Their chase for status drove them to steal more, never filling the void. The lesson, define yourself by purpose, serving others, building trust, not by what you own. And flaw number 5, for over a decade, Watson and the executives thought they'd never get caught. Success bred arrogance. But as it says inside the book of Galatians, you reap what you sow. Their small slip, Jane Doe spotting those payments, it was inevitable. Every choice has a consequence, and theirs was prison, shame, and a ruined agency. We all face moments where we think, I'll deal with it later, but later will always come. The government is riddled with waste. Trump's 2025 push targets agencies like the EPA and education. But USAID's $550 million hole shows the stakes. But the public demands accountability. And Trump's reforms, audits, budget cuts may be breaking USAID apart or a start. But systems don't change unless people do. In Mind Your Profit, we expose those stories to keep you sharp. Don't let greed or pride derail you. So what's one lesson this entire scandal has taught you? What I want you to do is to drop your answers inside the comment section below. And as always, keep your eyes on your money and your mind on your profit. And I'm going to see you in the next one.